Welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network. The radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince, along with our football guru. It's time to put that helmet on, Coach, blow that whistle, put on your headset, whatever you got to do to get in the vibe. Coach Heiss Northern. How you doing, my man?
Oh, everything going pretty good. I had a chance to enjoy some week 0 football on the high school level as well as on the collegiate level. Didn't pay too much to the NFL, the last preseason games, but it was some pretty good games on TV. The Florida State game versus Georgia Tech and the Norfolk versus Florida A&M game were both pretty good to watch, the parts that I got to see. So, like I say, it's going to be some more excitement this weekend with most of the schools in the conference starting week 1 play. And like I say, I think it's going to be exciting down to the Bayou Classic and the Turkey Day Classic to see who represents the East and the West in the SWAC championship game.
Yes, sir. FSU definitely got an egg on their face after talking all that noise, but neither here nor there. Norfolk appeared to bring a little bit more lumber than people anticipated, though, huh?
Yeah, it's still one of those things with Norfolk. I think they hadn't quite found the trigger man to push the ball downfield, make some open throws, and some of that goes to the wide receiver play. They don't have that one guy that you can say, no matter what, we can get the ball to this guy, or he can run by some people and make plays. And like I said about Florida A&M when we talked about them last week, those guys know that they can win some close game. In Norfolk, I think 7 of their 8 losses have been by 3 points or less. The last losses that they have, and quite a few 1-point losses. And once again, they end up losing a game by 1 point to a pretty good football team.
I think they aborted the run a little prematurely, especially when they got behind. Felt like they tried to get back into the game, but I thought they were really controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Yes, you can say they were, but at the end of the day, when it came down to that 2-point play, Florida A&M's defensive line blew it up, and they got penetration. Then when they got penetration, now the quarterback has the bow, and the linebacker was able to run scot-free straight to the quarterback because they couldn't, what we call double team up to the linebacker, because big number 0 made a play at the defensive end spot and shut down the whole 2-point conversion. It should have been a walk-in touchdown, but because of the play, 2-point conversion, but because of the play of the defensive lineman, they end up getting, like say, the penetration call blew up the whole play. The linebacker get the credit, but he was able to make that play because of how well the defensive line played.
Absolutely, absolutely. You always got to pay homage to the big guys up front, man, always.
Hey, they make your linebackers better, and they can cover up some things on the back end. If you got a good pass rush, they make your cornerbacks and your safeties a lot better, because a lot of times the quarterback can't step into his throw because he has people around his feet, or they may tip a ball or hit the quarterback's hand while he's throwing, and the next thing you know, you got an all-conference safety, but you really have to give credit to the defensive line for getting pressure on the quarterback.
No doubt about it. Well, talking about pressure, Coach, we're getting ready for this 39th annual Labor Day Classic. Prairie View has announced their starting quarterback. So that is answered. I believe there's still question marks from Texas Southern. Me personally, I think that's more hype than anything. Whoever starts, they got to execute. And now that this is, as they say, out in the open, if you're Texas Southern, how do you prepare for the projected starter?
Well, the main thing, if I was on the Texas Southern defensive staff, first of all, I would go back and look at what Coach Whedon did when he was the offensive coordinator, where he had served at a couple different schools. I would look at their scheme first and foremost, and let's try to focus on scheme. And then, depending on who Prairie View named as the starter, I'm going to see, based off of the 2 guys that I would think were in the biggest part of the race, who do I have to either spy or who do I have to blitz from one side or the other. Like I said before, we played against schools that we call a lightning blitz. That means we're going to blitz from the left side of the defense, the offensive right side, or the quarterback's right hand. So if both of those guys can throw running from either direction, then I may say, okay, we may have to spy this guy. Both of those guys that were in the running are pretty good athletes. Now I might have to say, well, I have to spy these guys with a safety, because me spying with a linebacker or a defensive lineman, those guys are not going to make the play. So now I have to see, do I have to put an extra cornerback at my safety spot in order to be able to make a tackle in the open field on a scrambling quarterback? So those are things that as a defensive coordinator I would look at. If I'm not quite sure from a scheme standpoint, what do I think we're going to see versus the athleticism of the quarterback, do I have to put in a special package because one is way faster than the other? I can remember when we played my very first game as head coach at Prairie View, we played against Bethune-Cookman, and we had an idea of what they were going to do on the offensive side of the ball, and they had to play, we call it zone read Bob, where if you run in zone read and they fake like they're going to block the defensive end, but he goes up to the linebacker or the overhang. And, man, we had an answer for it, but we didn't have a good answer because it was a play that we were not expecting to run. They were running it against a freshman linebacker who pretty much just was out on the field, didn't have a real good feel for things that we were doing. So we got exploited. I think they ran that play 6 times and averaged probably 12 yards a play whenever they ran it, because the linebacker was seeing one thing and didn't know how to fit it. So it's small things like that that you have to say, okay, how can we stop the guy that's number one based off the scheme and then based off his athletic ability?
Okay. Now, one thing that I'm very, very interested to seeing, not just with Prairie View, Texas Southern, but with the SWAC as a whole and with just football as a whole, is clock management this year with the 2-minute timeout, quote unquote, not the 2-minute warning. I don't know what's the difference between the two, but whatever it is. And how you will manage your timeouts a little bit now. And actually, this is another level. We always talk about the 3 executions, offense, defense, and special teams, but you got to put in there clock management or quote unquote coaching.
Yeah, so now it almost goes to somewhat of an NFL model of clock management once you get under 4 minutes, because you get that extra timeout. I'm going to still call it a timeout, but you get the extra timeout. So now you have to decide, am I going to just try to run the clock out? A lot of people, if you watch some NFL games, the last play before the 2-minute warning, you may see more bootlegs and play-action passes because the clock is going to stop whether you run or pass the ball. So, and, now it may be, if it's a 4th down situation, right before that, do you let the clock run down and run, or do you just run the play knowing that it's going to stop? So, like I say, that play before the 2-minute warning, 2-minute timeout is going to be the key. And as a coach, you say, okay, I know the clock is going to stop here. Do I let the clock run down, use the quote-unquote TV timeout, or do I use one and create 2 timeouts instead of taking 1? So that's the way I would look at it, more like the NFL model of timeout or clock management instead of the old college model of, okay, the clock is going to stop, reset on once the down markers are done. So it's going to be a couple things. Like I say, you'll see how they're going to try to play with that clock. 4 minutes in, 2 minutes in, then the under 2-minute mark, how do they go about it?
Okay, we're talking right now with Coach Heiss Northern, football analyst for the open mic, getting ready for the 2024 season. Now, Coach, I know that you got the doors open, lights on for a potential return to the sidelines coaching. But as a fan or regular Joe from Kokomo, how do you watch a football game?
I usually watch it from the standpoint that I'm still coaching defense. So when I see certain things, I look at a game, especially the running aspect, and see who did what we call box or spill. Is a team a double spill team where they try to force the ball outside, or are they what we call a spill and a box team where they try to force it outside and then send it back to the middle linebacker? So I look at it from a standpoint of how would I stop both teams' offenses. The other thing that I look at is the wrinkles that you may see that would throw my defensive scheme off. Okay, if I see somebody that's pulling 3 people as opposed to 2, or do I see a team that's running bootlegs and waggles, how do I stop that? Because most of the time you're telling your end to crash down, and then how does he play the bootleg? So it's a couple different things that I look at when I watch a game. I don't watch games. A lot of times I'll watch the game in a room by myself because I will rewind the game to see, okay, how did that play break? How did that unfold? How did that guy get so wide open? And a lot of times I can look and tell who messed up just based off of what hole or where the ball went, or did a guy fall for a double move, or was it bad eye discipline by a safety, a linebacker, or a cornerback, different things like that.
Well, Coach, we're about educating our listeners, right? And you're talking some football language, which I enjoy. But every now and then, we'll get some sisters, believe it or not, that like to listen in on these, and even some brothers who might be a little novice to it. Explain the difference between a bootleg and a waggle.
So, all right. So, for me, a bootleg is the quarterback starts one way with what we would call a play fake, maybe an outside zone, and then he would start, say, left to right, and then he would peel back around with nobody in front of him to block. So most people call that a naked bootleg, and then you'll see a tight end or the fullback from the side that the quarterback starts to leak out the backside. To me, and some people differ on, a waggle is where you start one way, and then you may have an offensive lineman pull to give the quarterback maybe a one-man protection to the side that he is rolling to. So to me, that's the difference. And then you have what some people call sprint out protection, where sprint means that the quarterback is just whatever side he is, usually to the full receiver side or to the trip side. He's going to roll that way, looking to get to what most people, he's going to try to get to the edge of where the offensive tackle lines up with some protection, usually a running back or an H-back to give him some protection. So that's, to me, that's the difference. But some people will, they have what's called a naked bootleg. They have what's called a waggle bootleg, a half sprint, semi-sprint. So it's all those things that are sort of intertwined into how do you stop an offense. So that's, to me, that's what it's called. But, like some people, what I call a nickel defense, some people may call it a dime. It's just different on where you are and how do you. And to me, it's like whatever you teach your kids, that's what we going to call it. So that's what I would tell guys. I don't care what you learned before. This is what we're going to call it in this defense. When we see this is what it's called.
Okay. Now, when you talk about schemes and advantages, I don't personally have a problem with it, but it's been a big fuss about sign stealing or, scoping out, going through that. That's been done since the test of time, trying to get whatever advantage you can get. And who's to say that you couldn't assign someone from the coach's box during the games on what's being called to try to help counter how to stop them from a defensive advantage or from an offense vantage point? How do you view all this stuff that's going on in the big fuss about sign stealing?
Well, I think if you are using, if you're not using technology then you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. So most schools have certain plays that they call. So everybody runs what's called a saw blitz. That means a Sam in the wheel linebacker or blitzing. So I can look at the sideline and see if I can see the coaches do a sawing or a chopping motion, and I know. And then a lot of people, they call their coverages by numbers. So you'll see a 0, a 1, 2, 3, 4 based off the coaches on the sideline. Now, I've been at most places. When I was a defense coordinator, I would be the only person that would signal plays. And if people watch me, they can tell, they watch long enough what coverage we're playing based off of my signal. But at the same time, they have to relay that to their players. The other thing is, I've known coaches to go as far as talking to the ASL people, the sign language people on campus, and say, hey, can you send one of your kids over, come watch a football game with one of the coaches and relay to me what that person on TV, like if you know how to lip read, what is the coach saying when they're watching TV? So I've known people to go that far to try to get an edge on signals and signs and different things like that. Then you watch some teams, you'll see them with the sheets and all that on the sideline. I know coaches we had to turn our benches around at one place. I want to say it may have been Alabama A&M. It was one of the Alabama schools where the coaches could see based off how we had our benches. So we had to flip everything around and write. So when we would write plays, that they couldn't pick up what we were doing. And now in the age of transfer portal, now you may have guys that was playing at Southern last year, now at Prairie View, or Texas Southern now at, another school. And now those guys know, and you have to change your signals or how you communicate certain things. But at the same time, you don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage trying to outsmart your opponent, then you outsmart yourself. And we had that happen the year after I left Grambling. I was at Prairie View, and we changed some signals and went to wristbands, and we had one guy that could not handle the change in how we called plays. So we pretty much had to go back to what we called stuff before, and Bruce Eugene basically picked us apart, because if he knew we were playing, we called it zebra, which was cover 2. He knew the soft spots in cover 2. If we were playing what we call lanes, cover 4, he knew where the soft spots was, and he could hear the guys. He pretty much wait till they call the coverage, and then he would decide, okay, I know where I'm going with the ball. And it wasn't a good day for the Panther defense. We wasn't a purple haze that day, I'll tell you that much.
It was a purple mess.
it was purple all over the place. It looked like somebody had shit on it.
Now, Coach, you talked about something a little while ago about technology, and I know we're still a little ways off from the helmet transmitting on the conference level. Instead of just giving it to a couple of players, why not just give every player the transmitter? That way you can eliminate all the signs, use your technology, and everybody's on the same page.
Well, you talk about the expense, and from what I heard, that system runs about $5,000. So if you try to outfit that many guys, you think of the expense that it's going to incur. But actually, from what I've been told, it is a penalty. So the player with the green sticker on their head has the communication device in their helmet. And you cannot have more than one player on the field with a green sticker on their helmet. I want to say it is a delay of game / personal foul 5-yard penalty if you are caught with multiple people having the device on the field at the same time.
Now, I understand that the system is $5,000, but that would be for your basic initial base to communicate. But all you're going to be doing is sticking earpieces in, and I'm sure that would be a minimal cost. And if everybody is on the same page, you call your play, everybody know what their assignment is on that play, And, I'm just thinking for the advancement and for the good of the game, do you think that would change the dynamics of the game as we see it now?
I think it would change it some, but you got to realize it cuts off with 15 seconds left on the play clock, so it's only so much you can communicate. So a lot of times, from what I'm hearing, if the coordinator calls a play, so he might say open trips right, 944 X shallow. So that's a passing play. He's told X, Y, Z what to do. He calls, then he may say, okay, let's look for X first, or he may say high-low read. So it's only a certain amount of things that you can communicate in that period of time. So it can be good, but at the same time, it's only so much that you're going to be able to do before that play clock hits 15 seconds, and then all communication is cut off.
Right, and I'm understanding that part, but would it not be the same if you're in a coaching session or whatever, and you're calling out that same play, your offensive line, they know what they're supposed to do on that assignment, the receivers, the quarterback know what they're supposed to do, whether it's 15 seconds or not, everybody's still getting that same message. You don't have to signal a sign from the sideline. You got to interpret what the sign is because you're losing time in that manner. And if you hear the play, you go and execute it. And the same for your defense. Here's the set we're going to be in and adjust accordingly. I'm thinking, and maybe I'm stuck somewhere and you can help me get out this rut. It's no difference.
But like I say, you got to think of the cost that it's going to incur per player. So if you're an offensive coach, how many guys are you going to put you probably going to say, okay, I'm going to get my top 8 offensive linemen, my 2 quarterbacks, probably 4 to 5 running backs, 6 receivers, a couple tight ends and fullbacks. So now the cost of 20 just for that side of the ball. Say 20 for offense, 20 for defense. You'll probably go 8 defensive linemen, 6 to 8 linebackers, and then 6 to 8 in the secondary. So, calculate the cost of that with maintenance, with taking care of it, with keeping up with it, making sure it's charged. Just imagine equipment managers now. It's hard keeping 8 sets of headsets going. Now you got to deal with 20 sets of
earbuds. They're just earbuds, though, Coach. It's just earbuds, man. They're not talking back.
I understand it, but it has to stay in the helmet. And then, okay, if you're just putting earbuds in, you have to have a way to secure it to the helmet without causing either damage to the helmet or structural, what they call.
Oh, man, use some duct tape, Coach. Put some duct tape over their ears and let them go at it, man. There's got to be a way, though, in all this technology that we have.
Yeah, and then you get a joker like me that sweats all over the place. You got to make sure it's waterproof and all that kind of stuff. So, it can be done, but, the upkeep, and I think just the volume of it will get burdensome to someone, especially if you already own a tight budget.
Well, I can see that being the near future, though, because it just makes sense in the long run with the way everything is going. But that's neither here nor there. We got a whole bunch of football coming up on this weekend. We know that you guys want to be doing the Labor Day Classic from Prairie View. Are there any other games that are standing out immediately for you in this week 1?
Well, of course, I'm looking at my Jaguars and seeing what are they going to be able to do versus McNeese State. And I didn't realize McNeese football had been in such a rut over the last 2 years. I watched a little bit of their game the other day. And at one time, man, McNeese was so loaded with transfers that it was hard to beat. They were, I think, a little bit more advanced in terms of the transfer portal, that at one time they would have coaches that pretty much a couple guys, GAs, all they did during the summertime was call different college coaches and find out who did they have transferred. Like, really, they started right after spring football, and they would try to see who was transferring from X, Y, Z. And then the next thing that they would do is let's try to offer these kids scholarships. And I'll tell you this, when we played McNeese when I was the head coach at Prairie View, I think we may have lost 34-3 or something like that. So we went back and looked at it, and every touchdown that was scored by McNeese was scored by a football player that was either formerly in the SEC or the Big 12. So that was the difference in the ball game, that, you know, they had transfers from everywhere in the country, and we didn't have any. So that can be a big difference in the wins and losses. So, you know, McNeese has fallen on hard times, but they did just recently redo their locker rooms and field house because they got some money from when the hurricane hit a couple of years ago. So they have that now, but they still hadn't found a way to get that win. So I'm trying to see what my Jaguars going to do. The other game that's going to be very interesting that some people may think might not be is the Jackson State UL Monroe game. I think Jackson State, if they just go in and don't turn the ball over, they're going to have a legitimate chance of winning that game. And then the other non-conference game is the South Carolina State Florida A&M game. the opening day for Coach Berry at South Carolina State versus a Florida A&M team that's coming off a big win in the SWAC MEAC Challenge. So it's another SWAC MEAC game, but what are the Rattlers going to be able to do versus Coach Berry? And I know Coach Berry is going to try to run the ball, play action pass, and we're going to try to see how physical can they be. And then the thing about it, he brought a lot of guys from Division II where he was and try to see how will they be able to compete on the FCS level with a defensive line like Florida A&M.
And you know another game that's intriguing me, and people give me a hard time for it, but it's the first game, and I'm always hopeful. I'm interested to see how that Tennessee State-Mississippi Valley game come out.
Yeah, I think if once again, if Valley can go in and don't beat themselves, because I really don't know much, to be honest with you, about the talent level at Tennessee State. What are they doing schematically? But, you know, like I say, it's a game that I'm going to pull for Valley. But, like I say, you don't know with what is their summer school situation. How many guys were they able to keep on campus, and do they have to play themselves into shape? Did they come back to camp in shape, or did they come back to camp and were able to focus on football and not have to focus on conditioning for 20 or 30 minutes at the end of practice, different things like that. So, and then the other one that I don't want to sleep on is the Grambling versus Lafayette, UL Lafayette game. So hopefully the Tigers can, you know, have a few wrinkles up their sleeves and make some things happen offensively. UL has been pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. Can Grambling move the ball as well?
Right. Now, I'm going to step outside of the conference just for a moment, and I know it's not breaking news, but it's something of noteworthy, at least in my opinion. Delaware State went to Hawaii.
Yes.
Had some traveling nightmares. And the first thing that jumped out is that they got a commercial flight versus a charter flight going that far, and they missed the flight due to some bus transfer deals, this, that, and the other. And they went out, they covered the spread. I think they were 40-point underdogs. They got the moral victory, and then I think it was only like $350,000 they received. The first thing I'm thinking about, that shows a lot of hassle for that amount of money. And does somebody need to get fired behind that?
I would like to say yes, but you know, some things are out of your control. But as a coach, if I know I'm going from Delaware to DC, I'm probably going to leave myself 2.5 to 4 hours of, if something goes wrong, because I know you got to go through some turnpikes and all that, getting down there to the airport. But at the end of the day, it depends on what the situation was. Was it something that somebody on my end didn't predict well, or was, like a bus with a flat tire, a bus that stops working? And I have been on some buses with, that had a door fly open while we on the highway, a tire run out of gas, you name it. On a bus, I pretty much dealt with it, minus one catching on fire. But it depends on what the situation was. But I know it was a hazard. And you think about it, at one time, the game was 14-14. And they ended up losing, I think, 35-14. So, but it's like we talked about last week. Can you handle the distractions? Can you handle what you can handle? And those kids went out there and handled playing football before they eventually ran out of gas. Now, what time the game was, Delaware time, I don't know, but that can be a factor. The heat and humidity of Hawaii versus the heat and humidity of Delaware. Did they just simply run out of gas, or did they start beating themselves in front? I looked at the stats, so I didn't see any turnovers. I saw that Hawaii had, I think, 5 sacks. So those are the types of things that let you know they played a good game. The one thing I should have looked at was the third down conversion. But, it's just one of those. They went out there and played, didn't do any harm to themselves, but it was a game. I bet you they feel like, man, if we would have did this one or two things, we win that football game. And you hate to have a game like that, but, you glad it wasn't 58-0 and with a running clock,
Right. And the travel and the finance from the game, I just tried to play somewhere else, but that's neither here nor there. Coach, it is game time, man. It's game time, man. As I said, all the lip smacking is going to be set to the side just for a minute, but the fans are about to get cranked up in SWAC Nation in particular. And with that, we're looking forward to the Labor Day Classic kickoff. And I want to give you some closing thoughts and comments, man, as we get ready to wrap this week's segment up.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it from a standpoint of, like I say, you go through from media day, that's one thing. Then you go to training camp starting. That's you go from media day, you probably on 8. Training camp start the first day, you probably go to 9. Then for me, being at both sides, Labor Day Classic weekend, I probably start the week off on 10 if I had to speak at the press conference or not. I'm starting off Monday on a 10. So once I saw a few clips from the press conference the other day, I was like, oh, yeah, it's real-time football now. And now it's just getting everything, like I say, ready to rock and roll. And come Friday night, Saturday when it's kickoff time, I'm probably on 15 ready to go. And then, but I have to act like I'm still on 10. Like, I'm not going to act like it's the end of the world, but it's pretty doggone close to it that if we don't win that football game, you like say, you don't want them to beat you twice, but I think it's going to be a close game, closer than what most people think. I think most people think Prairie View probably going to win by, 14 points because they've been having it, it's a rival game, so it's always going to be close, but a blowout is 14 points in some people's eyes. And then the other thing is, who can handle their emotions, who can make a play when it's time to make a crucial play, not dropping an easy pass, not getting a penalty, and not getting plays called back. So I'm looking forward to just the excitement in the air of being back on Prairie View's campus, going to see a few of the Panther backers, Miss Wanda and Mr. Dino and all them, give me a little bit to eat before the game, and then enjoy a great atmosphere. It's supposed to rain early in the day, but I think by the time game time comes, man, if that place ain't packed or, pretty much sold out, then something wrong with some people between Houston and Waller County.
Yes, sir. Well, the game still has some tickets available as we check, and let you guys know that you can listen live here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network for the 39th Annual Labor Day Classic. Coach Heiss Northern and Andre Davis will be our men in action, giving you all the fast-paced action for Texas Southern and Prairie View. And we're looking forward to a 2024 season, Coach, that is going to be one to be remembered, in my opinion. And with that being said, we want to thank you guys for joining in with us. He is Coach Heiss Northern. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. Remember to follow me on Twitter X at The Mike Prince Show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. And until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.